started. Welcome everybody. My name is Casey Moran. I'm a civil engineer with the city. Will be the project manager for this bridge, I guess. So we have here Jamie French and Linda Greer from Fuss & O'Neill. They're our consultant working on the design, and they're going to go through the proposed project and traffic plans.
Thank you, Casey. So a couple of things we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to do a quick overview of the project, what the existing bridge looks like, basically why we have to do the work, the proposed work that we are going to be doing to fix up the bridge, how long the construction is going to take, and the traffic phasing for the project. Linda's going to talk a little bit more specifics about the traffic control and the intersections, and then we do touch base on the schedule and answer any questions you may have. So this is a city project, and it is to preserve the Queen City Bridge. We're not replacing any major components. The original bridge was built in 1923, so it's almost 100 years old, so it has gone through several rehabilitations already. It is on the NHDOT municipal red list, and that is really just due to the condition of the deck, which we will be fixing. NHDOT is involved. This project is in the municipal bridge aid program, and basically what that means is DOT pays 80% of the design and construction costs, with the city paying the balance of 20%. But it does also mean that we do follow NHDOT practices and standards. So I'm sure you all know where the bridge is, but Queen City Bridge is there on the bottom, and as you go north up the Merrimack River, you see Granite Street, Bridge Street, and Amoskeag. Just kind of a close-up of the bridge. You'll see Elliott at River's Edge there to the right, and I-293 to the left. And I've marked the two abutment locations just to show where the bridge actually goes. It spans over 293, the river, and the railroad. So the existing bridge, there are portions of the bridge that are original to the 1923 structure, that picture being one of them. So there is some concrete deterioration, and that's what that is. You see the concrete starting to fall off, and you'll see the condition. Those rusty lines is the reinforcing steel. So those are the kinds of things we're going to be repairing. The expansion joints up on top of the deck, those are also at the end of their service life. A typical expansion joint only lasts about 25 years, so we're going to replace those. And this bridge actually has an out-of-date bridge railing. It's a type that DOT actually doesn't use anymore. So we'll be replacing that as well. So the truss itself is actually in pretty good condition given the age. It's also the original 1923 structure. There's some minor deterioration that we're going to fix up, and there's also some sections of poor paint. You can see the green and red kind of mix over there. It's not what it's supposed to look like. So we'll be fixing that. So the work we're actually going to be doing, we will be doing that partial painting of the truss, those areas where the paint is really bad, mostly the bottom of the truss, and anywhere there's an expansion joint, we'll be painting the full height. So that will be done. We'll be fixing any steel members that might need repair. We'll be doing the concrete repairs to all the piers and the bridge abutments. On the top, we'll be taking off all of the pavement and the bridge membrane. That will all be new after we repair any concrete on the deck itself. We'll be replacing all the expansion joints, the curbs, and the sidewalks, because those are in fairly rough condition. And there's also a new bridge rail and lighting. So the construction we're expecting to take 2 years. We talked a little bit before, basically half of the bridge each year. There will be no construction during the winter months. So come mid-November, the contractor will stop work and shut down for the winter. They'll start back up kind of weather dependent, but traffic will be in its normal everyday condition as it is now through the winter months. There will be several nighttime closures. There's a couple of repairs to the truss that requires that there's no load on the bridge itself just because of how they work. So those are expected to be a couple of nights, hopefully not consecutive, and there'll be a detour in place for that, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. We will be impacting traffic on I-293 slightly. There are two bridge piers you can kind of see. There's one here and one here that are between the highway and the river. And to get to those piers, we have to come off of the highway to do so. So traffic control, I know that's why everybody's here. So there's going to be one lane of traffic in each direction throughout construction, except for those couple of nighttime closures. We'll also be maintaining pedestrian access at all times through construction. And Linda will address this a little bit. The traffic, how long you have to wait in traffic, shouldn't be significantly impacted by the construction. So this is basically a section view of what you see in these plans. So if you cut a section through the bridge and you're looking towards Elliott, this is what you would see. So the first thing we're going to do is try to gain just a little bit more width to keep traffic on. So we're going to come in and we're going to shift all the traffic to the curb. We're going to move pedestrians out to the middle of the bridge, and we're going to take off a small piece of the sidewalk. Once we get that complete, we will take out one of those barriers. We'll put traffic back towards the sidewalk and pedestrians back onto the sidewalk. And we'll do the curb side of the bridge. Once this is complete, we will be at our winter shutdown. So that barrier will come out and traffic will flow as normal. When we come back in the spring, we're going to again move all that traffic to the curb side where we just finished, and we'll keep pedestrians on the curb, and we'll kind of be working in between those two locations. Once that gets done, we now move the pedestrians over towards the center of the bridge, and we can come in and finish the sidewalk and the railing.
I don't really get that, yeah. So to kind of explain the TCP, like, she explained where everybody's going, but as far as the intersections go, as far as traffic queues and queue links, because we are holding the same configuration at each intersection and to about 150 feet towards the bridge at each intersection, the intersections themselves will operate like they do today. There might be a little bit of queuing, but from our traffic analysis piece, because we have that space and then it narrows down and nicks down to the single lane, it pretty much operates as it does today. So we're not doing any changes to the signals, no changes to the phasing or timing. That will all stay the same. You will neck down and go to a single lane, but it's kind of funny because how traffic works today, as you're coming towards 2nd Street, because this right turn movement is so large and so many people, this bridge for that direction almost drives in a single lane as it is. Everybody kind of tries to move over. So that also helps the situation to stay similar to what it is today. Again, over at the sundial, I'll come to this. These two are basically the same as far as phase 1 and phase 2 and lanes. You still have 2 lanes entering here off of past Sundial. You'll still have the dual lefts coming out of Sundial for about 150 feet. You'll hold those 2 lanes, and then the next 150 feet you taper down to a single lane. So what else did I learn from that? We do have those night closures. So the detour will be set up for cars to be notified of the detour at 2nd Street and then also at Elm Street. The contractor is to put up variable message signs 2 weeks beforehand, so everybody should know this closure is coming and what to expect. We worked out so that the gas station can maybe stay in operation during that closure period by allowing people to come in and make that left. Because right now, the only traffic thing is what comes over the bridge, because the median gets them off there. I guess the one difference at the intersections is this condition here is a stop today, or it's a yield today, and it will be a stop condition for the TCP. But again, that might slow movement up a little bit, but you know, already, Second Street, that direction backs up a long ways, so it'll be the same, it'll operate the same as it does today. Am I missing anything? Yeah, signal timing will be the same, we're not changing any of the signal timing or signal phasing due to the TCP. And it'll go back, in the winter it'll go back the same as it is today. You know, the worst months for this will be May and June, while school is still in session. But after that, and school is out in summer, the traffic volumes do drop down. And so that'll make it a little easier. Closure period time for the overnight, is it 9 o'clock to 6?
8 to 6.
8 to 6.
Is what we're allowing right now.
So, and we believe that they will keep Sundial intersection open during the night closure. So that intersection will still operate, so people that are back in the Sundial area, residents or workers, will still be able to get there through that street. But then we'll have to go, you know, they'll have to be on this side of the river to use that. They won't be able to get over the bridge.
So the project schedule, we are basically complete with the design. We're wrapping up final plan changes now and getting our last approvals. We're expecting to advertise the project for construction in a couple of weeks. And construction is going to be starting in spring, so it's coming quickly. Anybody have any questions?
Define spring. Do you mean April, May, or May, June?
Most likely April. It depends really how quickly the contractor wants to mobilize. You know, typically they'll spend their first couple of weeks or months putting together shop drawings and things like that. It really depends on what work they think they can get to quickly. You know, if we have good weather, they're going to want to get out there and start working right away. So, and they can also have work, you know, they may go down below, you know, they'll be able to access under the bridge through here. You know, they have several piers they can start working on before they even affect traffic. So it really just kind of depends on what the contractor wants to do in his order of work.
Has there been any consideration for cyclists on the bridge or improving it or any proposals along those lines?
Not that I'm aware of, because we're not really replacing anything, we can't really make any of those changes because we're not changing the geometry of the bridge at all. It's staying the same width and we're really just patching it up. Yes?
If we're removing the bridge deck down to the membrane, you're saying that we're not removing any of the concrete sidewalk itself?
No, we are completely replacing the sidewalks.
So you have to re-pour the entire sidewalk?
Yes.
And the proposal is for it to be 6 feet wide?
It will be pretty much what it is today. Again, because we're not making the bridge any wider, we can't make anything else wider.
I believe it's a 6-foot sidewalk today.
I think it's a weird number.
Yeah.
Actually, I could probably tell you.
I think one of your slides has a cross section.
Well, that's the phasing one. It's phase 3.
5'10".
It's 5'10". So I think we lost an inch.
I would like to propose consideration of widening the sidewalk to have a mixed-use path to take into account cyclists and pedestrians to increase their level of service comfort across the bridge. Right now, there's 4 lanes, so what's the proposed configuration of the lanes?
It matches the existing today. Actually, don't have a typical in there. There's 12-foot lanes.
12-foot lanes today, there's only what, a 2-foot shoulder on the other side, on each side? There's not a wide shoulder.
But it's a wide lane.
No,
It's a
So
12.
you know,
it's a standard lane.
a standard highway lane, right?
It's
Is that
a
the
standard
standard?
lane. I mean, there's a large volume of traffic on this bridge, so, you know, we can't really
If you narrowed it down, that would only affect some speeds and probably increase safety, but would that be advantageous?
Well, the bridge also was crowned.
Mm-hmm. You're not affecting the crown?
You can't change the crown. So if you're changing the lanes, then you're no longer having a lane at the crown. The split of the lanes at the crown.
Mm-hmm.
Narrow. I don't think there's enough.
I don't think there's enough width in any direction to get that. I mean, you only have 24 feet, you know, when this is all said and done, you only have 24 feet from the ground line to the base of the sidewalk. So,
Is this bridge on the, yeah, this is on the NHS too, right? Green City? It's on the
I'm not sure.
NHS, no? It's a town, it's a town
I'm
road?
not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I would not know this, but you were writing the grant. I thought it was on the NHS.
I mean, I guess
Because that,
the real point to address your question is this is a planned rehab of the bridge, not a full reconstruction that's going to make the bridge wider, allow for extra space. While I agree it would be great if we could do something like that, I'm not sure if this is the time that we can. The life of the bridge will be up in the next 20-ish years.
and that is actually a good point. I mean, that's part of the reason we are not replacing the entire deck or doing a full paint, because it's very expensive, and this bridge is about to be 100 years old. So it's kind of one of those, you know, it is coming to the end of its life, so we're not doing, you know, a $20 million project, we're doing an $8 million project to extend the life of the bridge and get it off the red list and keep it safe for the traveling public.
At the request of Bike Manchester, inquiry about this idea of a shared use lane, I gave a call to Larry Keniston, who is the active transportation coordinator for New Hampshire Department of Transportation, to inquire about some possible solutions for this that would meet DOT criteria. And we talked about a couple different solutions that might be appropriate. You know, after some lengthy discussion, everybody felt that it was really not possible to have bike lanes striped onto the curb-to-curb width. But Larry suggested, based on, you know, cursory measures of the width of the road, Larry suggested that it would be appropriate to have 4 10-foot lanes, 2 in each direction, off-centered from the crown of the road slightly, to allow for a 10-foot shared use lane and a 2-foot buffer that includes some kind of fixed barrier. An example, I could send an image, but there's an example from Boston that was just redone. I think it was the Longfellow Bridge. This 10+2 buffer plus the 4 10-foot lanes would meet the standards for DOT. And based on what I'm seeing here, that would only require a minor tweak to the construction methodology in terms of when the concrete sidewalk is pulled off and then replaced, instead of putting it back at 5'10", you would just put it back at 10 feet plus a 2-foot buffer. Now, this is all just a cursory conversation, but Larry did put that out there as a solution to be considered and proposed. So I just wanted to share that information. I was working on behalf of Bike Manchester to provide them some technical information, and that's the conversation that transpired.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions?
All said and done, is there going to be any improvements done with the sundial intersection and the 2nd Street intersection?
Not particularly, no.
So
Not
it's-
through this contract, not for the bridge. Because there doesn't need to be changes to the signals and signal timing, this is a bridge project.
Yeah,
To
I'm
say that
just,
the town, you know, may not do something, you know, the city may not do something, but it will be this project.
I'm just from the motorist standpoint, the intersections are in tough shape, pavement-wise.
So they will get an overlay. Mill and overlay will go through, not through the intersection, but up to the intersection. Because everywhere where there's temporary pavement markings here, so mill and overlay will go all the way to here.
Okay.
And will go all the way to, to there. On the intersection. So, but it's not going all the way through the intersection.
Now, quite new to Manchester here, what is the access limitations on Brown Ave as far as trucks, or is it strictly passenger vehicles? Or what's the weight limit? So if my truck's needed, I have a Brown Ave gate on my property, so I can open that up and alleviate issues for employees to get in and out and go that way to 293. Could I utilize Brown Ave with my semis?
I assume you don't know the answer to this.
No, but we can back it up.
So I did talk to our guys who run the Bridge Road program, and they suggested you give us a copy of where you think you're gonna get your trucks in, and we'll let you know, because there are some sections of Brown Ave that are narrower than others, depending on how you're thinking of getting there.
Yeah, I'll send a note out to employees that they can use that entrance to make their lives easier instead of having to deal with this.
People will.
But I just need to make sure that either my trucks are allowed to go that way, or I gotta kind of make sure that they know that they cannot go that way.
It has to do also with the roadway, what the actual roadway base is for additional trucks and tonnage on that road. So, yeah, we'll have to,
Yeah,
the city will have to look at that.
here. I don't think you have my email, but it's there. And I have cards if you guys want them to. And we can talk about that.
Yep.
And most likely, once this construction is up, people will start, circulating a little different pattern, which will alleviate some of the traffic also. The worst time for the traffic for both intersections is PM peak. AM is not too bad, PM peak. It's both intersections are over capacity as it is.
Is the work gonna be done 24 hours?
No.
Or is it just daytime?
It's most likely going to be just in time. Very few contractors want to work 24 hours a day.
It's a rose couple nighttime pictures.
Right.
How many nighttime closures do you anticipate?
Only a handful. It's not going to be a lot.
A handful each construction season?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, they may do them all in the beginning, they may do them all at the end. Once we have a schedule from the contractor and we know how that's going to work, we can obviously share that information. If you need it.
And I guess the other point I should make is, this is the TCP that we laid out to say, you know what, the bridge can be built. But the contractor could come back with his own plans and changes to these, but they have to be reviewed and approved by the city, whatever they end up suggesting.
Any other questions? No?
Well, thanks for coming. And,
Yeah.
So just as far as moving forward, can we provide you some material to consider the accommodations for a shared use path to move this forward? I don't want to.
At this point, it's something we would have to discuss with the city, but to keep the project on schedule, it's unlikely we can make a change like that at this point. Going down to a 10-foot lane is pretty drastic. It's extremely narrow. We really have to evaluate that and see if it's even feasible. So I think for this project, it's unlikely that we could make any of those kinds of changes at this time.
Would there be a process that we could pursue though? I understand your position.
I
understand
don't think
where we
there's
are.
anything official.
I don't believe there is anything official. I will tell you, if you want to send me some of your material, I will look at it. I will talk to, my supervisor. But I do agree with Jamie that at this stage, especially because the plan is to get this out to bid and construction soon.
Yeah, you said in 2 weeks you were.
In a couple of weeks, yeah.
Yeah, that it would be pretty unlikely.
Then, yeah, if I could just get your business card.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
And I guess finally, is there any city policies that you guys follow with regards to this and incorporating or taking into account all modes of transportation, or this is a fully backed city design?
yes, and I will caveat by saying I'm fairly new. So I might kick this back to Todd since he just walked in. What a convenient time. The question is, do we have any plan in place for multi-use bike corridors, travel corridors, and how we choose which ones we move forward with, I think. Please tell me if I...
Yeah, essentially, what are the city policies that you consider or everybody considers engaging in a project like this?
So I guess what I would say is that we have a rough master plan as to where we are building rail trails and also adding bike lanes to the street. The policy of Public Works is to add bike lanes as part of paving projects, particularly where there's little or no curb resetting. So if we have adequate width, do we consider reduced lane sizes? Do we consider the removal of parking? Can we add a bike lane to the street that we're working on without the cost of new curb and things like that? So that's where we're at with what we're doing. We're taking a look this winter at where we have bike lanes, where we have rail trails, and we're trying to identify corridors that we want to start connecting. We're starting to get some pieces in place. It's the pieces that are missing that need some focus from us. As it relates to bridges across the Merrimack, a project like this, where we're not replacing the deck in kind, does not give us the opportunity to widen the deck. So we don't have an opportunity to do bike ped here. We do have the Ham Bridge, which is just north of this location, the bike ped crossing of the river. One of our rail trail projects is working to try and connect the South Manchester Rail Trail down to the Riverwalk so that it becomes more accessible. Tough to get to the Ham Bridge right now. You have to come in off of South Commercial where the Fisher Cats are, or you come in off of Sundial at the end. We'd like to open that up a little bit more. There's not a lot of opportunities to get on that Riverwalk. The one exception is there's a small pedestrian bike crossing behind the river, LA River's Edge. It's not well maintained. It's more like a narrow path. So there's potential for something like that to be opened up in the future, which would give one more point of access. But our plan as far as crossing the river right now is the Ham Bridge is the location for bike ped. We are working on some engineering studies for the Amscade Bridge system on the north end. And we're...
It's going to be in conjunction with this exit 6 and 7.
It actually looks like it's going to go before exit 6 and 7. It's a money and time issue because the state is putting 80% of the bill. The current draft of the 10-year plan puts that project in 2023-24. So that's the next big crossing that's going to come up. And we're not at the stage right now where we have the results of the initial engineering study. But what we're looking for is this a partial deck rehab? Is this a full deck rehab? Because if it goes to a full deck, now we have the opportunity to talk about the width. Coming across the Amscade, getting off the west side, that's a pile of spaghetti right there that I'm not sure we want to put bikes and beds into. But it doesn't change the fact that there's a lot of folks that live around that front street, Goffstown Back Road, Coolidge, and they may want access through. We haven't spent a lot of time trying to figure out how that works with the new exit 6. I believe that they're committing to pedestrian on one side, but I don't believe they're carrying bike lanes in their reconstruction. So we need to look at that with them, but that's our next opportunity to look at bridge crossing for like that. So that's kind of where we're at. We'd like to be a little bit more organized with this and a little bit more committed to executing the plan, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, knowing that the bridge has another 20 years in its life, and that would be when the deck gets expanded, it just seems like a long time.
Seems like
to
a
wait
long time, it does.
for these considerations.
Yeah.
Is this the first public comment period for this project?
Yeah, this is a state-funded or a partially state-funded bridge project. So the requirements for public interaction are much less because they look at this as maintenance, rehabilitation, as opposed to expansion or something new. So yeah, this is the first opportunity for the public to weigh in. And, you know, one of our primary goals, as I'm sure these guys mentioned, is, you know, let people know about the project, particularly the impact to community traffic and things like that.
And actually, to add to that a little bit, the project was actually fast-tracked by DOT because of funding sources. So we skipped the preliminary design phase, which is what we would typically have this type of meeting. So, you know, we really went from the study right to here's the final plans very quickly so that we could not lose our funding source.
You said it was 2021 construction, right?
Well, it's going to start this spring.
I was telling them earlier, Todd, that they had reached out to me, Bike Manchester had reached out to me about what some possible solutions might be for this bridge, which I didn't have a direct answer for, so I gave a call to Larry Tennyson up at New Hampshire DOT, the active transportation coordinator. We talked about it a little bit, and he agreed that there was not room for bike lanes on the width of this road curve. Knowing the deck wasn't going to change, he did have one suggestion for consideration, and that was to extend the width of the sidewalk to 10 feet and then have a 2-foot buffer, and then have the remaining dedicated travel lanes, which allow for a little more than 10 feet for each travel lane. That 10-foot of sidewalk could then be categorized as a shared use path. At least that's the way Larry explained it to me. So, yeah, for whatever it's worth, I'm just passing along that information.
I appreciate the comments. I have not talked to Larry about this one in particular, but I will mention that on our Rockingham Trail project where we crossed Candia Road, they were not accepting, the DOT was not accepting a 10-foot multi-use walkway path immediately adjacent to the curb. They insisted on a minimum 2-foot buffer between. So in this particular case, every foot counts. I'll also tell you the truck traffic in this location, going down to 10-foot lanes is a little nerve-wracking. So I think we've considered those in where we're at, particularly the 10-foot lane issue. I'm not opposed to 10-foot lanes, particularly in some spots, but with the truck traffic here, that's pretty tough for us. You know, I did fail to mention one other thing too. We talked about access. There's a lot of work going on right now about additional access to South Commercial Street. And some people might remember that last spring and early last summer, the city submitted a build grant application to connect South Commercial Street to Elm Street and to also look at redeveloping the remains of the rail corridor there that go underneath the Elm Street Bridge out to Queen City. That also came with a reconfiguration of Queen City intersection. We were unsuccessful in getting the build grant. We have plans to apply again this year, and we're waiting right now to meet with the feds to get their take on our application. Where was our application weak? Where can we improve it? But in the meantime, the city of Manchester is also starting to look at, can they bite off the first phase of that themselves? That first phase would connect South Commercial to Elm Street, and I can tell you that would include ped and bike. So I don't have a cross section or really even a design at this point, but it would be a new crossing of the railbed, and we would make that a full crossing, bike and ped. So that would be an additional way to get more conveniently to the Riverwalk. And then there's hopes that that project will see some federal funding, and we could redevelop that bike corridor out to Queen City and get that connected to the South Manchester Rail Trail. So there are other things that are earlier in the planning stage that might that'd be a nice border of the rail trail. They're thinking of a street with a separated multi-use trail.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, well, I think if that's it, we'll wrap it up. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone.